future, versus like, man, like someone like Gary Vaynerchuk, who I know that you guys work with,
He's
that
awesome.
guy, he lives on his devices. And while that's amazing, I don't want to live in my device. Like that's not something that I'm aspiring to
Me
do.
neither.
Right. Like I want to use it as a tool. I don't want to be the tool that the device is using, right, to either mine my data or whatever it is that we're doing. So anyway, I'm excited to dive in and learn more and grow this thing.
Yeah. Well, so let's just talk about that. Hi, everybody. Come on in. We know you're here. Yay. Hello. Kately, Apollo. Woo. And we're just talking some shop here for one sec. So that unlock, Apollo, like, I had the same problem, and I was trying to get our own interns to like go through our videos for almost 2 years, and I couldn't get anyone to do it. So I was like, this is crazy, because, we say good things, right? And we want not just to, it's not for our own, like, hear our own voice. It's to help each other, help other people, and to get those nuggets and make sure that they get translated. So, thank you for doing that. And I think that's like for me, that's the big problem is I always say to Jason, my designer, my co-founder, it's always right in front of you. That's my favorite thing when you're frustrated and you're wondering where to go for an idea. And usually it is. We've already spent time doing it, making a web page or writing a one sheet or even a long email or Slack thread. Like it's here somewhere. We just have to find that gold, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good saying. We had a post the other day where we were talking about, and my idea was, how do I send a message out there for people who feel like they've been doing this thing over and over and over again, and they just aren't getting the progress that they want. And it's always like this example. I always say, like, you're trying every door in like this skyscraper hotel, and every door is locked, and you're like, you know what? I just went through 100 doors. They're all locked. And what you don't know is probably the 101st door is the one that's open.
Totally.
So you're like, I think all of us, we're actually so close, but we can't see it, right? Because we can't feel it. We haven't tasted that small marginal kind of micro win yet. And the same thing, like when you see a sculptor or someone like hammering away at a rock, and it looks like they've just been hammering away all day and there's no progress. And all of a sudden, on the last strike, it's a clean split, and it's this beautiful split in the rock that happens, and you're like, wow, that was amazing. And what you don't recognize is all of the work that was done up to that point. So anyway, these are all just metaphors for life.
Apollo, oh no, everybody. Wait, so that's some of those gold nuggets. We're going to start here in a second. Hi, folks. But I'm like, obviously, I'm entranced and I'm excited about this conversation we're having, and we're going to continue to have. But one of the things you reminded me of, as we were just talking about French earlier, is remember that I think it was Le Jeu Sans Fin, like that book where like they're stuck in a room, those four people, like in purgatory kind of idea, but like,
isn't that like right now?
It's that.
No. Right.
Now I'm blushing. but that one more door, you just have to keep trying it. One more door. So, hi. So tell me where you guys are. Shout out. We got Chris Bro here, Katie, Peter. I think Kayla's out there today. Vancouver is good. Let's see. Apollo is in, did you say LA? Is that right?
I'm in LA right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Is it warm? You want to rub it in for a little bit? What's it like there?
Well, it's not warm for LA, but I always say that, the perfect 73-degree weather makes you pretty soft out here. So as soon as it starts to dip like below 65, people are like, you know what? I'm pretty sure we should just do another quarantine. It's getting a little too crazy. It's getting a little too cold out there. I mean, I used to run outside in like 0-degree weather. And then after spending 10 years in and out of Los Angeles and then, parts of Asia, like my blood has changed. I feel like my skin is not as resilient as it once was. So I got to get back to it.
It happened to me too. I'm from Vermont originally, and now like I complain about the winter. It seems terrible.
Yeah.
So awesome. Hey, Chris, and who's that? Is it Jai? Hi. Tell me how to pronounce J-A-I. I don't know, but I want to know how. Vancouver. That's cool. Chris Bug, what's going on? All right. So keep telling us where you guys are. I want to imagine what's happening. We were talking the other day about the weather and how, people were kind of pass it off as dismiss it as like a lame subject to start a conversation with. And it's the best subject, right? Because it's the thing that instantly lets you have sympathy or empathy, some cases, for whoever you're talking to, right? It's the great denominator, and that's what we all want. So, hey, Tara, what's going on? All right, so this is Lately Live. You guys know that. I have to do the perfunctory intro, so hopefully I won't botch your mini bio up here too much. But if you guys didn't know, this is Apollo Ono. I'm saying it right? Am I saying it right?
You're saying it right.
Okay, that's important. He's the most decorated USA male Winter Olympian of all time. Oh my God! And he was inducted to the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame in 2019. Short track speed skating, that's his sport. He won 2 gold, 2 silver, 4 bronze. He's also a New York Times bestselling author, a top 100 Forbes and Fortune speaker, and obviously like a super duper nice human. And my customer. I'm already sleeping. And my customer, and my voice software is talking to us, so let me shut that off here. So welcome, Apollo. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad we have a lot of people all over tuning in. This is fun.
Yeah, cool. Marianne. Oh, awesome.
Kate, congrats on the progress. You know, I know a lot of people who are probably kind of tuning in have a big interest in marketing and branding and messaging. And, you know, I guess, you know, some people may be wondering like why we're having this conversation. And really something happened where I stumbled across your platform, Lately AI, because I was following a venture capitalist Twitter account who I was following. And I get updates from this guy, and he was talking about, I believe, your platform. And then I started to see your platform, you know, as does the algorithm notice what you've been searching. And I started to see the algorithm more and more. And I'm like, I should probably check this out. Like, what is this? I have no idea what this platform is. And I started to look. And after about 5 minutes of just reading the description and then scheduling a phone call with Chris, who I think is actually on. Hi, Chris. I was like really, 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 really excited. And the reason why I was excited is because, you know, for someone like myself, who I've been, you know, 10 years retired from competitive athletic sport, I spend a lot of my time having these types of conversations, right? And these types of conversations in terms of how do we curate and identify some of the lessons from sport and experience, and then articulate them to an audience who's hungry for these type of content and knowledge and information, so that they can live a more productive, a more healthy, a more fulfilled life at the workplace and obviously at home. And I have a hard time doing that because, you know, I would spend an hour or two doing podcasts every day, or doing a consulting gig, or doing a speaking engagement. And then we would have to then go and get that speaking engagement, process it, download it, transcribe it, and do all those things. And then we have to kind of manually go in and splice out some of the things that we thought that were meaningful to produce to our audience again. And then I saw this platform and I was like, man, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Because, you know, when you do these types of things, as you know, we've got all these devices, right? Like all the time. And we're always using these things. And I always prefer to use the device as the tool, is an extension of my psychology. It's an extension of how I use it to my advantage. And I feel like the past 5 years, it's been reversed, where, you know, now it's this like new phenomena that Apple has. Let's monitor your screen time. Like, what? Aren't you like an adult? Can't you monitor your own screen time?
Totally.
But it just shows like how addictive we are in our conditioning habits and beliefs. And so, you know, I wanted to use the platform to just create further efficiencies in the branding and the messaging and the kind of content and the true north that we believe in, so that people can get access to this consistently on a consistent basis. Anyway, that's a little bit of my ramble, but I'm pumped.
I paid him extra for that, just so you guys know.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Wait, but so you touched on a couple of important things, and so we want to talk about reinvention, which is in there. But so the movie, by the way, which I think you're referencing, is the Social Dilemma. Is that it? That a lot of people are talking about. And like, just to touch on that, I 100% believe that the onus is on us, the user, right? The same way it would be with nicotine or alcohol, frankly. I mean, yes, those are evil. There are lots of evils going on there, but, you know, in a large sense, and not 100% of the time, but in a large sense, as an adult human, I make choices to either live and die by this thing or not, you know, right? So like, I turn mine off every night, and it's not allowed in the bedroom, and I put it in a drawer, and that's the end of it. And I have all my settings turned off to not annoy me, except for one, which is my team Slack channel, because they're more important to me than anything else. Sorry, family and friends. But, you know, that gets more, I think, to what we're also going to talk about today, is like having the wherewithal right? So this is what you own. This is understanding what you as a human can do to reinvent yourself, which is what you're working on and have done also. And it starts, I think, though, with that perception that you can, right? So can you talk about that a little bit? Like what, and I hope I'm not asking a question that a million people ask, but I probably am. But like, what was that transition like after the Olympics for you, that helped you even imagine being here?
So the transition for myself personally from, competitive sportsman, Olympic identity, and really one identity was really hard. I may not have shown it on the outside, but psychologically, I describe it as the following. And I'm writing about this in this book, Hard Pivot, that I know we'll probably talk about later. So imagine, and many people who are watching this will probably have the same kind of fundamental beliefs where, when we think about our identity, we normally tie that identity to what we have been doing for long periods of time. So like, who are you, Apollo? Like, well, if you asked me this 10 years ago, I am an Olympic champion. I am an Olympic speed skater. I am an Olympian. I'm a sportsman. And so that Olympic identity had been signaling from the external society perspective for 15 years to show me you are only good and celebrated if you make the podium. And this is what you were born to do. This is what you were meant to do. And then like that, either by injury, by age, by choice, by failure, perhaps, you are not being asked to retire from sport, but sport tells you. Now, this is the great divorce, right? Your one true love that taught you everything that you know. It taught you about, your strengths psychologically. It taught you about discipline and hard work and resilience and grit and all those beautiful things that are really great life lessons. And then overnight, the day after the opening ceremonies, your one true love looks at you and says, I no longer love you. I no longer want you. And we can no longer be together. You must go. I have a younger suitor who's more attractive, who's better in every way. And you're like, what?
Oh my God.
This relationship is over. What are you talking about? And anyone who's ever been through a bad relationship can relate to this, but that's what it feels like, right? It's this violent breakup from the one true thing that you cared about and you thought would always nurture you and be there for you and show you that you have importance and purpose in this world. And then at the snap of the fingers, you're now kind of thrust out into the kind of normal society, trying to fight for your, your passions and insights and interests as a civilian now. And if you haven't won an Olympic medal, unfortunately, most people don't know who you are. That's just how it is in society. And if you have won an Olympic medal, people always want to celebrate you as the Olympic champion, which there's nothing wrong with. But as you grow through this process, and I'm speaking from experience, there's nothing more that I wanted but to prove people, hey, there's more to me than that facet of the diamond that you saw. I'm so much more. I'm more than Dancing with the Stars. I'm more than the medals. I can do this and that. And, and so I went down the path of saying yes to everything. Like I'm talking about, people ask me to go into a business. They asked me to travel. I was just yes, because I knew at the kind of soul level, I needed experience. I mean, when I was training as an athlete, I was the guy who was jumping out of the airplane with no parachute trying to land on that target. If I landed, I was safe. If I didn't, I was done. And I was okay with that level of risk. But I think as you go through life and you start to progress, you recognize and realize at the same time, you don't have to go through life in that way. There's some mitigation here. You don't always have to be so hardcore and so severe in your decision-making process. So to be completely frank and honest, it's an ongoing process, right? That loss of identity that occurs, that, that severe violent breakup with the one true love. And then is this adventure to find and identify, what am I good at? Why am I pursuing another path? What do I want out of life? And more importantly, what does life want from me? And when those two questions, I think, are asked consistently, your true north, your true compass, your mantra, your ethos, your purpose starts to come to light even at a greater degree. So the process is never easy. And for people who are watching this, who maybe have faced in some degree a forced reinvention, which is what we had to do, a forced pivot in our life, right? Like, look, everyone in every organization is trying to pivot right now, and everyone's trying to do a hard pivot. Here's the reality, Kate, is the pivot is only successful if done consistently over long periods of time. Everyone wants to do the hard U-turn, right? Everyone wants to do the hard left or the hard right and pivot on a dime and then continue at the same speed as they were when they were doing this business or whatever their career path back in January.
True. Yeah.
And the reality is we don't know. We don't know how long it's going to take. Just like with that sculptor chipping away at that rock, just like opening all of those doors, these things are consistently being tested to show us like, hey, we don't know the outcome. And perhaps, possibly there's no complete guarantee of getting the outcome that you desire. However, the one thing that we know is change is constant. Resilience is absolutely necessary and critical. I mean, you know this as a founder and as a starter of your organization, and being creative, being able to be on your toes, be adaptable, and to remember always that while everybody around us is also doing the hard pivot and also doing these things consistently, it's not until the last mile that it becomes significantly less crowded. I'll say it again. The last mile of this journey, of this chapter, is actually the least crowded. And the reason why is because it's the hardest. It's the hardest to change. It's the hardest to create transformation. It's the hardest to stay consistent with that fundamental belief that I can be better over time. And I know that I can inch by inch progressively go towards that. I'm not seeking perfection. I'm seeking progress. So these are the life lessons that sport was able to teach me, that going through this psychological breakup with my sport and with the Olympic path, it enriched my life in ways that I think you can just tell because I'm so passionate about this. And that's my purpose now, is I want to share this with people who are not Olympic athletes. It's got nothing to do with that. My stature and my genetic makeup had nothing to do with my performance. It was between my ears. And if someone who's in their career path and living their life right now, we are human beings. We have the same unique gift and element. That's the way that we perceive the world, the way that we perceive challenges and turn them into opportunities. And I love it. I get like hyped about it every time I talk about it.
So no, and I'm loving this too. So can you say my name a few more times, because that's exciting, by the way. Just kidding. So one thing I wanted to relate was, so a lot of you guys know that I had another career in radio, and I mean, not on your level, but I was broadcasting to 20 million listeners a day at XM, and I'd lived that life for a long time. And so I thought I was Kate, Radio Kate, right? And so when I decided to leave, it was very hard for me. I literally thought like my whole identity was going to be flushed down the toilet, and I couldn't find that person until the time was right, right? And suddenly it just was, right? Suddenly I didn't care about that anymore. And the doors opened, going back to that again. So the metaphorical thing that I think is also important here is we're talking about the human journey, right? Everybody, I think, can see that. But in this time of reinvention and pivoting, where people are doing this in their careers, right? Even if that's like you're the head of sales for SAP's Japan division, right? And then you're moving on to a different career. That's a hard change. You've got that muscle memory, right? Or how you fear or feel people define you. The good news is, as you're saying, is that, and I love this all the time. This is what wisdom gives us, right? When you look back now, the line to get you from there to here is straight, but at the time it feels like this, right? And that's what you're saying. It's that last bit is all part of that. When you can bring all these tools that you've earned in your life, and then apply them here. Right. So I want the folks here to sort of be thinking that as well, because I know, Kayla, I know you've been making some changes in your life. For example, sorry to pull you out. Ankit just became one of our employees, so he was looking to make a change, right? So people are thinking about this all the time. It's scary, right?
Change is scary. Change is uncomfortable and it's unfamiliar.
Change is scary.
And it's we live in a society where oftentimes we don't have to change. Right? Because technology is so great, we can basically maneuver our way and still live and operate the same way as we did before. But again, and I stress this because I've seen the changes from friends, from family, all of the great people that I have discussions with. Change is critical. I mean, if it is something that if you can embrace it and recognize that this is not going to be an easy path or task or process. And you go through that fire, you come out forged out of iron in a way that you will look at your old self and say, like, I can't believe I used to be like that. And all of us, right? Like I think we know that when we see people around us and we see that man or that woman who's on fire, they're just like, they seem possessed in what they're doing. Well, what happened in their life to make them get to that point? And oftentimes we as human beings, we self-sabotage, right? We self-sabotage to a certain degree until we hit rock bottom. And we hit rock bottom, and some of us hit it like a springboard and it's like a trampoline.
True.
And some of us hit rock bottom and we just lay there and we are laid out and we feel paralyzed by all of the things that we can't do and that are happening to us. And so instead of always focusing on, self-sabotaging or doing it without even knowing, you have to almost surrender yourself to what your real true north is. And I say this a lot, what your real purpose is and what your real meaning and reasons and desires really are going to be there. Because when we don't, we start to get into the weeds of things that hold us back and things that aren't really allowing us to progress forward. Every transformation, and you said this the best, right? When you say, like, when you look at the straight line, right, here's point A and we're trying to get to point B. I like to call it point, this is Apollo 1.0 and I want to get to Apollo 2.0. And as Apollo 1.0 takes 2 steps forward and then 2 steps back and 2 steps forward and 2 steps back and 1 step forward and 2 steps back. And it feels like this struggle and resistance consistently, but it's supposed to be like that because, if you've been doing something for 15 years this particular way, of course it's going to be hard to break that habit. You neurochemically have already designed the way that your brain reacts and responds for 15 years. And you want to change this in 6 weeks? Like, come on, it's going to take repetition. And sport, we knew that, right? I had to reinvent in my own career multiple times. And I knew the only way for me to change from Apollo 1.0 to get to Apollo 2.0 was the consistency of getting in those reps day in and day out.
Totally.
And also finding, and I got this, I'm so old school, I'm going to put this up here. Stuff like this, right? Like, hope you guys
sticky notes.
Right?
Awesome. Process equals price.
Still have those? Yeah. I'm like, yeah. So like,
no, I do. Wait, hold on. Let's share. Mine says you can walk through walls.
Oh, I like that. That's kind of like this one.
There we go. We'll trade.
Yeah.
Don't think you are. No, you are. All right. So sticky notes, people. That's like a good takeaway from today. Awesome. Even Apollo does it. So we're talking about rebirth a little bit and reinvention, and the dedication, which I think is a really big point, right? And like that to have that kind of dedication when you're changing your life, when you're choosing to take the ride, I think it requires a little. I say it like this. I think it requires a little crazy, which is like my way of saying it. But you have to have some blinders on, right? You just gotta, no matter what people are saying, you just have to do it, right?
And absolutely. I think that comes from a strong sense of like radical authenticity. Like, and you hear this cliche, like, what would you do if you really didn't give a shit about what anybody thought? What would you really do? Yeah. What would you actually do in terms of career? How would you run it? What are the things that you would do if you didn't kind of tiptoe around? Like, how would you run it? Right. Well, obviously being respectful and being a good person, but how would you do it? What kind of person, what kind of things would you actually do? And I think that the world, I believe, is starting to gravitate towards those who we deem to be really authentic. And the reason why we see that, and that can be like the crazy, a friend's dad who's he's so goofy and fun, but we love him because he can't help but just to be himself. And so we know what we're getting from that person, and we're getting truth. So authentic and truth seem to go hand in hand because look, he can't even help himself. That's just who he is. And I think there's a part of us that really, really has that desire to want to be like that, to just be ourselves, no matter what people will say, and just say, hey, that's how I am. Like, I like to be like this. Right. So I think that I'd like to think that we're moving towards that in society.
It's so much easier, by the way. And it is something that I default to. I mean, my husband sometimes is like, hey, can you get both feet in there? Cause it is what it is. Right. I know this. And I have to sometimes catch myself, which is annoying, but the liberation it gave me, I mean, I sort of made this hard choice, meaning like a direct choice a few years ago. Somebody just said, be yourself, right? And I thought, how cheesy is that? And obvious. But it was the first time I really heard it. And I realized that, for example, I was going to venture capital meetings with like, you know, a suit jacket on and my leather briefcase. And like, that doesn't really go over. And it wasn't me, right? So I wasn't getting anywhere because I was literally putting on a costume, you know? So I think that's really important, is when you're making these choices to just use yourself as your own weather stick, right? Like we talk about this in copywriting a lot, conversations, but if it doesn't feel good coming out of your mouth when you read it back to you, it doesn't feel good to the person on the other end. And it's the same way with this magical gut we all have, right? It's a wonderful tool. If it's not feeling good here, it's not the right choice. Right?
I love that. I think that we can learn a lot by saying that. And we know that when we gravitate towards people, we say like, I don't know, I just like that guy. I just like that girl because they just seem real. They just seem real. But like, why is that some phenomena? Like that shouldn't be some like unique thing. Like we're all real. We're all beings. And so again, I think, you know, and part of this is the kind of the external signaling from society and from social media to tell us that we should and act like this. And, you know, by nature, we're only putting out our best versions of ourselves out there on social media. But I think that, and I talked from a place because we did a documentary on this called The Weight of Gold, in which it required a lot of athletes to talk about, you know, kind of ripping open the curtain that goes on behind the process of going to get gold medals and being vulnerable and owning that vulnerability and saying like, look, like there wasn't really a lot of resources for me mentally and psychologically outside of pure performance. Like if I wasn't doing okay, I didn't really know what to do about that. And I wasn't okay a lot of the time. There's a lot of pain or micro trauma that many athletes have had. We just use it as a tool. We lean on it as a lever to really give us that promotion in our sport and produce great results. So, you know, the lesson there is, for people who have pain or you respond or react in ways that maybe don't always suit the best outcome that you're desiring, that's usually coming from something that has happened in your life in some capacity, and you've conditioned a response or mechanism that is just natural to you. And that's fine. That's okay. But you can change that over time. You can slowly start to improve upon that. But you first have to recognize and be vulnerable enough to say, you know what, this is what happened, or this is how I am. I don't have to remain this way. I don't have to be that person that no one wants to talk to in the workspace because the way that I react instinctively, or I'm so defensive right away. I get it. Like, that's cool. Let's talk about ways in which you can progress so that you don't have to be in that mechanism. And it's hard. It's really, really, really hard. But like anything else, if you want it and you want it bad enough, transformation comes at a price. And that price is the consistency of getting those reps in. And if you're willing to do that, then there's no more glass ceiling. It's limitless.
So is it okay if we go a little bit long, everybody? Yeah. Is it okay with you, Apollo? Just because this is fun. I want to talk about the reps thing real quick, which is, back in the beginning when I first started doing this thing, I was so very scared and nervous. That sounds weird now, but I was, and especially talking to venture capitalists because they're intimidating and they're old white dudes for the most part, you know? And my trainer, Fred, was like, you know, you just need a little pump before you go in there because I work out every day. And I was like, yeah, that's what I need is a pump. And he's like, just do a few push-ups before you go into those meetings. So like literally, this sounds so disgusting now, but like I go into the bathroom and like they have those toilet bowl white things that you put on that are like all sterile. And I would like grab some and put in my hands and I would do push-ups before I went into the room just so I could feel like little, you know, balls.
That's hilarious. But I think there's actually some data behind that. I want to say,
is there?
Amy Cuddy on TED.
Yeah.
I think she talked about the power of putting your hands in your hips because of the psychological awareness of what that does to your testosterone, growth hormone, and these feel-good hormones. So I think it's really powerful. By the way, I've done that. I know exactly. I don't do the push-ups, but I've gone into a stall and I've done like 100 like air squats before I walk into a meeting.
Awesome. That feels so good. That's
they're
so
like,
validating.
oh, did you take the stairs? I'm like, no, I just came from the bathroom. I'm like, oh, this should be an interesting meeting.
It's
Yeah.
the mind and the body, linking up, and how powerful really that is.
Yeah.
Remember, if you look good, you feel good, right? That was Billy Crystal from the 80s. You look marvelous, remember? I'm not going to do the accent, but that was his thing. Okay, wait, so Jay, is it Jay? Sorry, she has a question, sorry, Jay. Oh, this is interesting. So want to know, so he grew up half Chinese, half white, which is always in between two identities, and wonders if you find that effective to how you have viewed the world.
Well,
Impacted
thank you,
how you view the
Jai,
world.
or Jay. Apologies if I'm not saying your name right. My father's Japanese. I'm half Japanese, half white. European mix. I did the 23andMe. Was astonished at how many different kind of cultures that I've
Really?
got running through my blood. But anyway, did I see the world differently? I don't think so. I like to say that I was really, really lucky, and lucky because my father was extremely adamant about introducing cultures and people to me through food. So while we didn't have a lot of money growing
Nice.
up, like I remember eating so many different types of foods, from Russian to Lebanese to Indian, Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Ethiopian. I mean, you name it, I was getting my hands in there at a really, really early age. And I didn't know it then. My dad was trying to get me to recognize two things. One, how big the world is, and two, how beautiful the world can be. And although the world is that big, we're actually not that different. We all share stories and connection through food. We always sit down, and in many cultures, we do business after a meal or during a meal in a certain perspective, right? Like we want to share that connection, that we are human beings. That's why I love food today, is it allows us to sit down, breathe, have a moment that is real, that is human, and that is present. And that's
And
what's been
messy.
so hard and tasty and messy. And it's been really tough because, as we do this COVID situation, that's been really challenging. I mean, just recently have we started to eat outdoors here in California. And for the most part, we weren't having that. We were just doing like literally digital Zoom calls and meetings where we would share drinks and food. So, I always stress people to take the time, spend time with your loved ones. Like, life is super short. I know that everyone is super alpha and they're hungry and they want to inch away, but don't lose sight of what we have right here and right now, because at any moment you never know what can happen in your life. And to me, it's whether it's this conversation with you, Kate, and getting these questions from these people, like I value this stuff, right? Because I feel like we're connecting even though it's
so
digitally.
good.
So
Look at this wonderful human here. Like we talk about this so much. So I'll share this with you. So my team, we do an offsite annually each year, and they come to my house, and we range in age from 20s to mid 50s, maybe, I think. And nobody's hit 60 yet, I'm not sure. But everybody comes to my house. We do something crazy outdoors, like a zip line, or we go to a skeet shooter or something. And then we make a meal, and I've chosen tacos because it is messy and there's so much in it. Tacos means you have to reach across, which is good. You know what I mean? But that's interaction. And then everybody sleeps on my floor in their sleeping bags. And we're not doing that this year because we can't, right? And it's a big deal because I really love these people. I trust them. I like them. We all like each other. And that annual event solidifies the because I have to ask them to do things that aren't easy for me to ask them to do, like not take a paycheck a lot, right? And so that meaningful time of being in person, breaking bread, as Peter is saying, right, sort of drives the company. So anyways, this year we're doing, you'll appreciate this, we're calling it an off-piste, right? So that's when you ski off trail, people. Because I didn't want to do just a Zoom cocktail party with them. And so we're all trying to plan some special events where we can still set aside a time that is just for being crazy and having fun and playing games together or something like that. But it's a thing that I miss dearly, that interaction.
I concur.
Yeah. So, okay, we've gone long. We have to just quickly talk about, or not quickly, it's up to you, Hard Pivot, which is awesome. So tell us about the book, and we all been getting a lot from you in these last 30 minutes. How can everyone here help you? We'd love to know, because we'll do it.
Well, first, I have been writing a book, and that book is kind of soft titled "Hard Pivot," and it chronicles the things
Great
that we
title.
talked about today during this chat. And it's really about reinvention, loss of identity, and identifying and finding ways to transform into the person that we can really become. So unlocking that gold medal mindset, and a part of that unlocking first has to be getting the mirror. And I call getting that mirror is sometimes the most challenging thing, because radical authenticity means that you have to look at yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to accept yourself. And you have to be okay with the mistakes you've made, the failures that you've had, and instead say that this is about the progress. It's not about being perfect. It's impossible, right? Nothing wrong with striving for perfection, but we really should be seeking progress. And so that is a really big part of the book, is helping people to unlock that inner power that's inside them, and to stop living life in the passenger seat. Start living your life in the driver's seat, knowing that you cannot control what comes at you through the windshield, but your perception of what to do, how to react, and how to
Mm,
respond is within your control. So instead of life happening to you, start living life that is happening for you. And it really, to me, begins with those two questions that we have inside Hard Pivot. What do you want from life? What do you want from the universe? What do you, if you're religious, what do you want from God? What are you seeking? And then what does the universe, or what does life want from you? And everyone has an answer. You can't sidestep this. You can't just say, well, you know, I just crunched the numbers. I don't really feel like it's that much purpose. Like, I don't care. Like, there's no excuse here. You have to answer that question. And if you don't have the answer right away, that's cool. Like, sometimes it takes time, but that inquisitive nature of having the moment to yourself, talking and understanding your experience on earth is finite. And if it is that finite, like, why are you not living your life like it is a gift? There's nothing wrong with having these challenges and having traumatic experiences that are out of your control. That is life, right? And you can't control the outcomes, but your perception and your reaction and turning them into the great response, that's within your control. That's what that book is really all about, Hard Pivot. And how can you guys help me? Well, you can help me by what I call living a life that is dedicated towards the five golden principles. So if this is interesting, you could write this down later. Five golden principles. I really think that they're important. I'm sure there's many more, but these are some of the ones that I felt like really helped me in my
do
career.
tell.
First one is gratitude. Second one is giving, not only giving to others, but giving yourself the chance. So we talked about self-sabotage. Time to remove that, right? Start to mitigate self-sabotage. Gratitude, giving. Third one is grit. I think we all know, self-explanatory, what grit is. The fourth one is gearing up your personal expectations. So if you really want change, you got to level up how you deem what is acceptable in your life. And if you want change, what you did yesterday may not be what is going to require you to propel you further. And the last one is, you got to get into action. Stop the paralysis by analysis. Your first run and try at transformation will probably not go the way that you thought, and that's okay, right? If you want to hit a home run, the first time at bat is pretty tough. The odds are not in your favor, but the more times you step to bat, the more times that you swing, the more times that you analyze and get out there and see the wind, the air, the temperature of the water, you will have success.
Amazing. Last question for you. Thank you. I see folks are writing that down, including me, which is wonderful. And I like the G's in the alliteration. Awesome. Gold. Good, 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 gold, people. So do you feel like now you were made for this moment?
Do I feel like I was made for this? I feel like this is
Like
my,
earlier, you said you were made for
yeah, if you
feeling
had
good,
asked
right? But
19-year-old Apollo what he wanted to do when he retired, 19-year-old Apollo would tell you, what do you mean when I retire? Like, there's nothing else after this for me. Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is it. If you ask me now, I think that I don't know what the next 10 years will bring. I pray for a healthy and life filled with love and support from friends and happiness. But I think that my life mission feels heavily weighted and dedicated towards helping and guiding and providing insights to others from my own place of pain, my own place of insecurity and fears of failures, and instead helping them say, hey, you can be the person who you really want to be. That's up to you, but you really, really got to be willing to go through the fire. And if you are, and I know that you can, I believe that you can't see it yet. Just like a coach can see the potential in that star athlete very early, the athlete doesn't recognize it yet. We as human beings all have that high performance mechanism. And so don't wait until you're at rock bottom. And if you're already there, shit, it's time to get on the horse and start riding again, right? That's what it is. But if you haven't, you don't have to reach rock bottom to flip the light switch on. You don't have to create self-sabotage to do that. And that's what I want to help people both avoid and progress towards.
I feel like this is your calling. I mean, I know I'm speaking for people here because I can sense it, but you're lifting a lot of people up right now, and it feels like this is exactly where you're meant to be. So thank you very, very much. I really mean that. Because honestly, usually it's the reverse. I'm doing the lifting up a lot, so it's really a pleasure to receive this from you. I'd love to give you like the biggest, warmest hug I could muster,
Thank you.
COVID-free. So there it is. All right, guys, we got to split. Hey, Johnette, thanks for joining. That's my Aunt Johnette. That's really nice. Apollo Ono, everybody. Hard pivot coming soon. ApolloOno.com. Yes.
Yep. ApolloOno.com.
Yep. Awesome. And Lately Live, we're back next week. I can't remember what we're doing. Lauren will tell you. And love to you all. Thank you so much, Apollo.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.